I'd like to call this meeting to order. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, a record, and by submissions to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilman Seaton?
Here.
Councilman Voigt?
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Knudsen is not present. Mayor Hache?
Here. And just for the record, Ridgewood Village Council Public Workshop, May 22nd, and the time is 7:30. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join us in a moment of silence in honor of the brave men and women serving our nation's armed forces and as first responders. Thank you so much for a moment of silence. Just some quick technical things. We have a new improved sound system that was installed over the last week, coupled with our new Swagit system. And then the panels are hopefully going to help with the sound quality in the room. So I hope that those folks who are sitting in the audience today can hear us. And then the other note is the clock tonight is 5 minutes slow. So we fixed the sound, now we messed up the time. So just bear with us. We'll go right into public comments, not to exceed 3 minutes per person. Good evening.
Could you make sure, sir, could you make sure that the microphone is on? Is the green light? See, push the button.
There we go.
And then just speak into the
How's
microphone.
that?
Great.
Perfect. North Walnut Street, some other neighbors here as well. I don't know
Give
if you
your
want to hear
name,
from
please.
everybody, but we've been pretty active in trying to get the speed limit reduced on our street and overall traffic calming measures. A lot of us attended the local safety commission meeting last week. So with Councilman Voigt, he was very helpful in addressing some of these issues. We had a good discussion, followed it up with some emails. It seemed like an option was reducing the speed limit. I mean, I would propose 15 miles an hour. I don't know if that's possible, but I think it could be a good traffic calming measure that's really no cost to the city, and that could be implemented throughout the city with very little cost. There's some other things that I think could be done after that, but I think it would be a really good first step, and just hope guys would consider it.
Ralph, can you tell us about some of the issues you're having on the street as it relates to speeders?
Yeah, so the street has changed a lot over the years. There's probably 30 children that live on that street now. It's kind of it's a flat road that goes right into town and right out of town, and it's really easy to leave town and do 50, 60 miles an hour down that street when there's probably a kid in every yard playing. So it's definitely been a big concern to us, and we value our children on that street, and we definitely want to see something done. I know the police put a cop car on there, or they do things from time to time, but it doesn't really address the problem holistically, and we think that there's solutions that can really be done to address it, and I think they can be done throughout Ridgewood. And right now it seems like the city paints double yellow lines as a response to calming traffic. I don't know how effective that is. Councilman Voigt and I have been back and forth on whether that's effective or not, but that's the only solution proposed for the last year. So I think there's other things that can be done. I don't know if my neighbors want to say anything, but and even talking to Councilman Voigt, it seems like this won't cost the city anything. It's changing a couple signs, and I think just enforcing it, which hopefully can bring revenues to the county, because I'm pretty sure you'll rack up a lot, and then see how that goes, and then I have a list of other proposals following that can all be implemented at very, very low cost.
Matt, I talked with you earlier this week about the speed limit, the minimum. There is no minimum that can be set.
New Jersey's pretty funny. They have maximum speeds for
highways, local roads, and the like, but they don't have a minimum speed. And I think all of the local roads in Ridgewood right now are at 25. You could go slower, but the test for police and monitoring it is whether or not it impedes traffic. If your speed impedes the regular flow of traffic, then you can get ticketed with going too slow. But there is no minimum speed. So.
And North Walnut's a pretty wide street, anyways. And it's straight and flat, so I don't really see lowering the speed limit as being prohibitive to getting traffic through there. Even with street parking, that seems to be the most effective thing actually at reducing speed, because if cars are parked and people weaving in and out, but it's actually been a good calming measure just having street parking. So, I'd like to see something done. We've been back and forth with the council on the safety council on this for a year now, and
All right.
just kind of see what you guys thought.
Thank you. Do any of the neighbors want to come up? Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Kevin Rose, and I'm right on the corner of North Walnut and Linwood. Just wanted to voice my support of the idea of lowering the speed limit. As he mentioned, right now it's, as you know, 25. It's very easy for a car or for any driver to see 25 and think, oh, man, I'm going 40. But obviously going 40 down a street with kids, probably again like 30 kids between the ages of 2 and 6 is extremely dangerous. And when you would see a sign that says 15, that gives you a little bit more pause, because you're thinking, well, if I'm going 40, then it becomes not just a misdemeanor. We'll say you're actually going above 20 over your speed limit. So it's something that as he said, to have that kind of initial signage at 15 to make people really think about what they're doing would be a huge help. Obviously, then it has to be enforced, because if you have a sign that says 15 and you still allow people to go 40 and 50 miles an hour, it doesn't really help. But it would be something that would be a very nice first step and bring, hopefully, some calming measures to the streets. So I very much support it, as does my 4.5-year-old daughter. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Don't be shy.
If you would give your name and address, please.
Sure. Matt Sharippa, 125 North Walnut Street. Councilman Voigt, nice to see you again. I am here in support of the motion to reduce the speed limit on Walnut Street to 15. I have been a Ridgewood resident now going on 4 years. I have 3 tiny boys, 5, 3, and 1, who would very much appreciate not having to hear me scream at cars as they fly past my house anymore. It is a known cut through. We are bordered by Maple and Oak. Both have traffic lights. We are a nice straight street for them to cut through to town. And we do get quite a number of speeders down our block. I think, and I've been attending the safety council meetings now for about a year talking about this topic. And we do think it's a good first step to try to calm the traffic down our road. And I very much support it, as does my wife, who is putting those 3 children to bed right now so that I can be here with you fine people. That's about all, and probably repeating a lot of what Kevin and Rolf have already said, but thank you guys for your time. We do appreciate the consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Lauren Kupek, 112 North Walnut Street. Really just reiterating what the other neighbors have said. Ongoing, we've really been concerned about the speeding, trying to work with the safety committee on coming up with some solutions to really deter speeding on our street. And we feel that this recommendation is really the best first step, so we can see what happens as a result, and then perhaps further implement any other measures. But really do support the recommendation that everyone else is making, and hope that you take into consideration. My husband also agrees, but is actually out of town tonight, so couldn't attend, but speak for both of us at our home. And we have 3 little kids, and it's very hard. They're kind of stuck on one side of the street. We can't really let them, even in the front yard, it gets concerning as they get closer to the street because of how fast the cars are going down. My 2-year-old yells from the front porch, "Slow down, slow down." So my kids are well aware of the speeding issue on the street, so I would love to see that changed sooner than later. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You're
I don't
good.
live on North Walnut. Denise Lima, 319 East Glen Ave. First immediate feedback, the sound is fabulous.
Oh, good.
Oh my God, where have you been? This is great. Okay, to everybody. First, let me say thank you for your service. I think we all realize that managing the village with such diverse cultures, objectives, opinions is no easy task. You're chartered to help shape our village, maintain the beauty, support our children's future, create a vibrant downtown, all while trying to transform our town into the digital future and under budget. I ask any resident to step into your shoes for a month. It's a complex responsibility and one that should be taken seriously, so I just want to say thank you. Today, I want to discuss two things. One is about management and one is about leadership. And management is about doing things right and making change happen. And there's a few initiatives that are near and dear to me that I think we kind of fall short of this. I'm not really here to debate, are we working on it, not working on it, we couldn't do this, but, we're just really looking for a completion date on things we think have taken a long time. The master plan, the Shedler property, we haven't restored the historic home or created a park or playing field. The town garage is still there, the duck pond is still in disarray, and I'm really getting worried about the Vanderbilt Walton House on Maple. We don't always have to agree on these priorities and how this gets done. You get to manage this. This is why we hired you. Leadership, on the other hand, is about doing the right thing. So as elected officials, naturally you have a passion about the Constitution and you have an obligation to uphold it. I know you agree because in a prior municipal election in 2014, one of you promised during the debate to vote in every election moving forward. I also know you agree with this because the council made a powerful recommendation to move the BOE budget process from November to April so that residents can regain the right to vote. You all voted, it passed 3-2, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councilman Seaton, yet when the vote took place on April 16th, one of you did not vote. I can't imagine that somebody forgot. It was on social media, the newspapers, superintendents sent out reminders to the parents. League of Women Voter distributed several messages, and we also had a robocall from the village manager. And because it was held during spring break, mail-in balloting was promoted so much that we doubled our participation. As an elected official, how could one of you not vote? And since you have vested interest, especially because you have children in the school system, how could one of you not vote? I was shocked, disappointed, and mad, and the community has lost credibility and in your integrity is now in question. Having the right to vote in the country, this state, this village, and most importantly for an agenda pushed by this council is not an option.
I'm sorry. Is that right? Seems kind of quick.
3 minutes.
Oh, 3 minutes? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
It's not an option. It's an elected official. It's your obligation to vote. Leadership is about doing the right thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi.
Good evening.
I'll be within 3 minutes. My name is Douglas Walmsley. My wife and I are homeowners at 119 Monte Vista Avenue, and we've lived there for 27 years. We're seeking to designate the portion of Monte Vista Avenue between Heights Road and Monroe Street as limited weekday parking, similar, for example, to the other half of Monte Vista Avenue between Heights Road and Crest Road. Currently, Monte Vista Avenue between Heights Road and Crest Road is designated as 2-hour parking weekdays from 7 to 11 a.m., whereas the portion of Monte Vista Avenue between Heights Road and Monroe Street has no such designation. Because of its proximity to the Ridgewood train station, this undesignated stretch of Monte Vista Avenue has become heavily utilized for commuter parking. The number of commuter cars parked there in this location has steadily increased over the last 12 months, such that on weekdays from about 8 a.m. to at least 6 p.m., as many as 6 cars are parked in this location. From this location, it's a 5 to 6 minute walk to the north side entrance of the Ridgewood train platform by following Monte Vista Avenue to Crest to Ridge Road, where a walkway connects to the train platform. This is the pedestrian entrance at the end of Ridge Road, not the main train station entrance by Ridgewood Avenue. All the streets running from this undesignated section of Monte Vista Avenue to the rear train platform entrance have limits on weekday parking, making this undesignated stretch on Monte Vista Avenue an attractive location for parking. The parking situation poses a safety issue for pedestrians. This undesignated section of Monte Vista Avenue is an active through street connecting Heights Road and Monroe Street. This section used by commuters does not have sidewalks. Pedestrians walking on Monte Vista Avenue in this section walk along the curb side. As it is, cars turning off of Heights Road onto Monte Vista Avenue have difficulty observing pedestrians because Monte Vista slopes sharply downward to Monroe Street. The increased commuter parking further narrows Monte Vista Avenue, placing pedestrians, runners, cyclists in an unsafe position on the street. This is particularly true because cars frequently travel at a high rate of speed down Heights Road and continue at a high rate of speed as they turn onto Monte Vista Avenue. It's especially troubling that these commuters include non-Ridgewood residents who have chosen to use this stretch of Monte Vista Avenue for parking. One of these commuters advised me that it is more convenient to park in this location than to walk to the train station from his home in Hawthorne. We believe designating Monte Vista Avenue between Heights Road and Monroe Street as limited weekday parking is necessary and appropriate. At least 3 other families on Monte Vista Avenue share this opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I did deliver a letter to the city
Yes, you did.
earlier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, we'll close public comment. Just want to say, for the residents in North Walnut, what we should do is, for the next work session, bring the issue and perhaps have somebody from the police department come in and talk about what are the good ideas, what's feasible, and what makes sense, because all 3 don't always go hand in hand. But certainly, we're going to also reach out to you and just get your input as well, and try to come up with some effective ways of controlling the situation there. I understand. I know that you've taken upon yourselves to put some signs, which help. I think they help, but I can imagine. I mean, it's a cut through. You have a lot of people in a big hurry these days, and we certainly want to address the issue before we have something unthinkable happen. But thank you for the input tonight, and we'll definitely take it into heart and bring it back for a full discussion. This is more public comment, so it's not really a two-way, but we'll do that and give it a chance to have a full conversation about it. So thank you. And to the gentleman from Monte Vista, thank you so much for writing. I know you wrote to us. We're looking at the issue. Maybe we'll make that work session the traffic and parking meeting, but we'll look into that as well. It was the first time that I've heard of it, so I appreciate the fact that you brought it to our attention, and we'll look into that. Okay, thank you for that. And I do want to thank also Dylan Hansen for the sound, because even from here, I can hear people's voices more clearly. I don't have to put a question mark next to the last name. I think I get people's last name. So thank you for that, because it took a lot of work. I know that we had to kind of do a little trial and error for some things, but I think we finally got it. It is so much better, so thank you for that. I know it was a lot of hard work, and a lot of people were making a lot of noise about it, so thank you for that. And we'll move on now to manager's report.
Okay, the Touch a Truck event, co-sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce in the Village of Ridgewood, last Thursday was held at Venice Square. It was a huge success, beautiful weather, and it had the largest attendance ever. Today, Age-Friendly Ridgewood sponsored an introduction to the senior bus. A morning and afternoon bus ride was provided for 10 residents each trip to learn more about our central business district and other local activities. Along the route, Ridgewood representatives met the bus and spoke to the riders, sharing fun facts and handing a bag filled with items giving additional information. Thank you to all who participated. The 44th Fred D'Elia Memorial Day Run, sponsored by North Jersey Masters, will take place on Monday, May 27th. Graden Pool open Saturday, June 1st, 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Residents are encouraged to become members. Celebrate the opening of Graden Pool and Older Adults Month with a free breakfast Saturday, June 1st from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Seniors are invited to Graden Pool for breakfast served poolside. Enjoy juice, bagels, and live music on the patio. Learn about Graden Pool and all it has to offer. You can knit, play chess, cards, and board games, try your luck at shuffleboard, relax in the sun or shade, and of course swim. Graden Pool is handicap accessible and located off Linwood Avenue between North Maple Avenue and Northern Parkway. Registration for summer day camp has started and will be open until the cutoff on June 10th. After that time, there is an additional $50 fee. Day camp begins Tuesday, June 25th. Tuesday, June 4th is the primary election. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sample ballots will be sent out the week prior to the election. Memorial Day, May 27th, will be celebrated with a service at 11 a.m. in Memorial Park at Van Ness Square. All are welcome to attend. Monday, May 27th is Memorial Day, so all village offices will be closed for the holiday. There will be no garbage or recycling collection, and the recycling center will also be closed. Please check the village calendar for your sanitation or recycling pickups because they may change during that week. I just want to remind everyone finally that parking in all village-owned parking lots after 3 p.m. does not require a permit. There are still time restrictions of 3 hours, and parking fees are still in effect.
Thank you. Move on to council reports. Councilman Seaton.
Thank you, Mayor. The Ridgewood Environmental Advisory Committee and Green Team met yesterday. We discussed trying to move forward to do an environmental resource inventory in-house. So if we could do that, we could maybe use that as the basis to have REAC become a committee instead of an advisory committee. It would actually become a commission certified by the state. So I think we're going to try and REAC's going to try and propose that. Then Earth Day planning has already begun, so there's a possible theme for next year's Earth Day, but the full committee wasn't there last night. There were several people who weren't there, so there'll be more to come on that and the possible theme already. And then I'd like to talk about the Styrofoam Drive that was held on May 18th from 10 to 2. That was brought to us by a grant that was obtained through the Sustainable Jersey Bergen County Hub. We have two members, our REACT Chair Bob Upton and Green Team Chair Justin Manger attend these meetings regularly. So when the grant was received by the County Hub, they were able to direct a portion of that to Ridgewood. So it rented a 15-foot U-Haul truck, which was filled twice. So we started at 10 a.m. and ended at 2, and probably about by 11:30, we had more than enough to fill one truck. There was we were filling up 4-foot by 7-foot bags, so these were huge plastic bags, and we filled 22 of them. Plus, we had half a truck's worth of loose styrofoam, like big cooler-type containers and bigger pieces of furniture, packaging material. So the bags themselves weighed about 10 pounds. So just in bag styrofoam, there was 220 pounds. And then with the half a truck, we figure about 300 pounds worth of styrofoam were collected. Over 115 cars came in. And it was nonstop activity. It didn't slow down all day long. So a lot of thanks to Bob and Justin for getting this together. Ellie Gruber, REACT member, was there helping out all day. Serena, I'm going to have to apologize for her last name, Icavilo was volunteering, and Leslie Lilo, and the Ridgewood Board of Education President Jenny Wilson-Smith stopped by to help to load up some styrofoam. The truck had to go to Springfield, New Jersey, was where they recycle this stuff. So after the first truck got filled, Justin was good enough to drive the whole truck with all the bag material in it to his house and store it in his garage till Monday, when Bob Upton drove down to Springfield with the first load, dropped it off, came back, got the other load, and then dropped it back off in Springfield again. So it was really a monumental effort by everybody. So I'd really like to thank everyone so much, and I'd also like to thank Heather Maylander, the village manager, because I myself probably talked to about 20 to 30 people who were coming in. Like I said, it was a flurry of activity, so you couldn't possibly talk to everyone. but every single person I did talk to said they saw it on the big electronic signboard when they were driving past Graydon. So it was really, that drove a lot of people to this event and made it a huge success. So again, I'd just like to thank everyone, and that does it for my report.
Thank you. Councilman Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to first report on Chamber of Commerce. At our last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, I had reported on conversations that went on with regards to enforcement of parking in the CBD. So I actually did a ride-along or walk-along with our parking enforcement officer. I had my Fitbit on, so I was able to calculate. We walked 3.7 miles in the hour and 45 minutes that I was with her. She, and I observed her, give 40 tickets. So that's an hour and 45 minutes and 40 tickets. The majority of the tickets were illegal parking. So, I was trying to get an idea, and I know that some of the other council members may do the same, to get an idea of what are the challenges from the ground level, literally, as to some of our other parking challenges. The illegal parking was primarily people making their own spot, pulling up, jumping out of their car, running in to get a pastry or a cup of coffee or to drop a letter at UPS, or, there were lots of reasons that were given as to why they pulled up, parked their car illegally, and left their vehicle for any given amount of time. So, that's one thing. The other thing was we talked about the kiosk. So at the time that we were doing the walkabout, the kiosk on Broad was not working. Apparently, there had been a challenge with being able to feed money into the meter or into the kiosk, so we couldn't even police, or she couldn't even really enforce any parking along Broad during that time frame until we were finished, and it had been fixed by the time we were finished. So that was 2 hours later. So any revenue that we would have gotten, we didn't get, and any tickets that would have been issued weren't issued because of that. While we were walking around, there were several people at the kiosks on Chestnut. There were several people standing there kind of looking at the kiosk, so I offered assistance to the individuals. They were having challenges figuring out how to use the kiosk. This has been a criticism of the kiosks. So, I explained to them how to use it. I helped them figure out how to use the kiosk. But it clearly was a challenge. And I think maybe a recommendation, and this is open for discussion, obviously, to have some very simple instructions for the kiosk, maybe put next to it that says, license plate, pay, receipt, or something so simple that because they seemed so confused with what they had to do. Many of them did not know what their license plate was, so they had to walk back, get it, come back, and they just seemed flustered. So that was something. I explained to each of them that they could use Park Mobile, and none of them had ever heard of Park Mobile, and they were all Ridgewood residents. So I talked to the president of the chamber. We're thinking of maybe doing a little informational video to teach people how to use Park Mobile. But in my conversation with Ridgewood Police, if we could get those stickers, the sticker to scan on the signs that show where the kiosk is. If you have Park Mobile, you don't even have to go down to the kiosk. So if we got more people to use the Park Mobile, it would make things a lot easier. But apparently those stickers, Park Mobile charges us for the stickers. So we have to figure out a way to get the stickers from Park Mobile at a reasonable price or free, or however we can negotiate that. The signage. So we have endeavored to make the signage clear in the different parking lots so that we can assist people with where they can park, and that seems to, unfortunately, still be confusing. So I don't know if we can change the signage or just take another look at it or somehow figure out how to make it clear, because I stood there as people pulled in that thought that they could park, and I pointed to the sign and said, you can't park here, and they misunderstood the sign. So
So question, so did the parking enforcement officer agree that the signs were confusing?
They are yes, they are confusing people.
And
The signage
the
is
PEO
definitely.
has raised that issue to,
I believe
police?
she has raised it to Officer Chuck, who she reports to, and I believe that the chief. So that would be, I
has
guess.
that been raised to us, Heather, to you? The issues with the signs being confusing?
The one was on Broad Street. I'm not aware that any of the other ones are confusing. I know we addressed one.
Definitely Broad Street, because there's
Okay,
multiple
okay.
signs. There's
Okay.
the sign, and for anybody that wants to go up there, the sign talks about the parking permits, and then it says, or shoppers or diners, and then the sign below says, after 3 p.m., anybody. So people are taking that to mean where it says or, that even if you're not a permit holder, you can park there. They're taking the or to mean or you can park there. So, and that's what's confusing people. So, and then there were individuals that had the tags for other lots that were parking in that lot. So technically, they shouldn't have been parking there. So they got tickets. So, you know, it was definitely, it was a great experience to walk around and see the challenges. The other thing was there were lots of moving violations, lots of people talking on their phone. Parking enforcement can't give tickets for moving violations. So although we saw lots and lots of moving violations, people not stopping at stop signs, people talking on their phone, people driving up on curbs, you know, just all kinds of moving violations. Parking enforcement can't give those tickets. And there could have been a whole nother discussion. So all in all, I think, you know, maybe if some other council members can go out and do the same and bring back, you know, your observations, I think we can kind of continue the conversation and move that forward. So I don't know what's going on.
Oh.
Is that the heating system?
There goes the sound.
One last thing.
Oh, wait, sorry. So cell phones near the microphones.
Oh.
I'll put mine back here.
Oh, okay.
So the only other challenge that came up, and I'm not even sure how we can have this discussion, because I know that the chamber had gone to the village manager, the loading zones. There are trucks in the loading zones, not in the loading zones. I mean, they're blocking other parking spots. Obviously, they have to unload for the different restaurants and stores, but there really aren't many spaces for them to do it, other than at the end of a street. So there were trucks that were circling around, people giving them direction. You know, it just happened to be a busy day, and it was really a challenge. We had to tell one of them to move. One of them got a ticket, and then he moved and parked illegally again, and then was not so happy when we came back up to him. So there was a lot of issues. So that's it for my chamber report. And then for the library, so on the 11th, unfortunately, I missed the meeting on the 11th, which was an informational session about the Reimagine. And I know that they had a good group of people attend and take information from them. They're hoping that they can get more and more information, because there seems to be some confusion as to the plans, as to how long the library would take to do the renovation, if there's going to be any closure to the library. So they're going to do 2 more sessions, and they're doing an informational flyer. I saw actually the draft of it that they're going to clean up a bit and send out, but they're not sure how they're going to send it out, because to send it out would be very costly, because it's a lot of information. So I think they're going to talk to the village manager about giving a PDF copy that we can put on our site. They'll put it on their site. They'll put it on their Facebook site. They'll, you know, ask anybody to share it, so that as much information is out there as possible, so that as the process goes on, which they still don't have an answer from the state as to when they're going to be doing it. It sounds like maybe January. They just want people to ask questions and get the information out there. So that's all I had.
So one question, I know last meeting, the chamber was a bit aggressive about, there was heated discussion about whether or not
We're enforcing.
that we're not enforcing, but you went with the officer, it was clearly that to you that we were enforcing,
Yeah.
and, okay, so hopefully.
Yeah, and actually, there were probably a couple of tickets that could have been given out that weren't, simply because we discussed there was some confusion and people were confused, and like I said, the placards, they were confused as to where they could use them. So, I think that's, the challenge.
Could we get like a tracking as to what's going on from a ticketing standpoint? I mean, we had talked about this before, right?
We can get a list of the tickets.
Just track them over time and see what's happening as far as if they're going up, they're going down, and whether it's getting better, based on what the tickets are doing.
Well, I can tell you there were a couple of locations where we could have probably sat there all day and just continued ticketing people because they just it was like one car pulled out from parking illegally, the next car pulled in, like within minutes. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Voigt?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Citizen Safety Advisory Committee met last Thursday, May 16th. The same contingent that was here today to talk about North Walnut Street was at the meeting last week, and I appreciate their persistence in trying to move this forward. I know they're really concerned, and they've been frustrated probably for the past year or so as to any kind of solution. So, one of their suggestions as far as the speed limit, I think, is a good idea, at least to try, see what happens with that. I'm fully supportive of it. I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad we're going to put it on a future agenda to talk about it, because I think it's very important.
Just for the residents, the next public workshop is going to be on June 5th. Okay? Forgot to mention that before, sorry.
So that'll be on the agenda, right?
Yep.
Oh, perfect, yeah, good. So thank you. We also talked about West Glen, and Chris Rudishauser mentioned that there's another $50,000 in the capital budget. They're going to continue to pave the sidewalk west of Hillcrest, up the hill, which is a nice thing to hear. Union Street, they're going to fix Union Street once the weather dries out here. They're going to start painting more prominent one-way signage on the road, and also placing one-way turn signs out of the physician office, which is kind of closest to Dayton. People turn the wrong way and go down that, and that needs to be fixed. Starbucks coffee on Franklin, still issues with that. I know that Heather and did you meet it as well with Starbucks?
Yes,
we
did.
Okay, yeah. And so they're going to start working on, my understanding is they'll have a person there to help kind of move the traffic into Starbucks, because there's 2 lanes there. That'll help a bit. And then they're going to put an additional sign on the left side of the exit so that you know to turn right as opposed to left. Hopefully that'll help as well. There was a request by a resident from Waldery Avenue. The cars have been traveling fairly at excessive speeds down that road. I did forward that on to Heather, and you're going to look into that, yes? Good, thank you very much. And then the other issue we just mentioned tonight was Monte Vista. We're probably going to have to talk about that as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the Memorial Day celebration on Monday, May 27th at 11 a.m. at Van Ness Square Memorial Park, hosted by the American Legion Post 53. And speaking of the American Legion Post 53, our local Post just received a letter in the mail from American Legion Department of New Jersey at Trenton. The Americanism Committee Chairman Theodore Howarth Jr. congratulates the American Legion Post 53 as recipient of the Americanism Plaque, Bergen County 2019. And this was because of their exhibit last November, The Spirit of America Story. Commander Bob Paoli will be accepting the award on behalf of Post 53 at the annual convention in Wildwood on June 13. So I'd like to congratulate the Post and Commander Bob Paoli. They do a tremendous job. I think he's by far the best MC in town, and I always appreciate he puts on a good show. The Muslim Society of Ridgewood held its annual iftar on Sunday, May 19th. It was hosted at St. Elizabeth Church. It's a great collaboration. This is the 14th year that it's been done this way. And as I said in my remarks before the dinner at the breaking of the fast, If we can replicate the collaboration of our interfaith community, the world will be a much simpler place. We had a lot of members there from the interfaith community. Also in attendance, Board of Ed Vice President Jim Morgan and Superintendent of Schools Dr. Fishbein. We have on June 1st, I'm very happy to announce, we'll be hosting a celebration for Pride Month, also Van Ness Square Memorial Park. We'll be celebrating Ridgewood's diversity, and as such, it will be a wonderful community event with collaboration from various groups, including the RHS Gay Straight Alliance and the Ridgewood Interfaith Community, and we will be raising the Pride flag in a soon-to-be-installed flagpole near the northwest corner of the park. Happy to say that the pole was purchased with generous donations from several residents. Again, it was a great community collaboration. Just earlier today, I met with Joe and Greg, the owners of the table at Latona's, and they will be giving away free delicious sandwiches in front of their location at 26 East Ridgewood Avenue next to Haagen-Dazs. So immediately following the celebration in Van Ness, you can walk over and grab a delicious sandwich at the table at Latona's. It is important to note that June 2019 will commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, which are considered the most important event leading to the modern fight for LGBT rights in the United States. So invite everyone to come along. I think it's going to be a wonderful celebration. Age-friendly Ridgewood on May 31st from 10 a.m. to 11:30 at the Senior Lounge here. We'll be celebrating Ridgewood's acceptance into the AARP network of age-friendly states and communities. And I want to thank Age Friendly. I know we have Sheila Brogan here in the audience, and Beth Abbott and everyone who's been working really hard at making Ridgewood a much better place to age and play. So thank you. And that's all I have for my reports.
Okay, before we start the presentations, if we could just go to item 9C5, Affordable Housing Fund. Tom Toronto is here, and with your permission, Mayor, we'll go to that item.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, so you want to say something?
I asked Tom to see if he could give us an update on it in terms of the funding process, and also renew his request with regard to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So, if Tom, take the podium.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come up and speak. As you may recall, I was here, I think, in early May, and at that time, was updating you on our progress renovating the space, or our plans to renovate the space, the second story of the former Seal Funds building, now the PNC Bank building. We actually will be back tomorrow for a slight modification to our plan with the Planning Board, a technical review. As I mentioned when I was last here, it's our desire, and certainly the village's desire, and the code officials and the fire official, to make sure that the renovations happen in the safest way possible for the safety and security of the residents. So the good news is that we are, as I also mentioned, we were hoping to put together a funding parfait, if you will, that included the village's municipal housing trust funds, the county's home program through the Community Development Department, and tomorrow heading down with our team to meet with Executive Director Richmond of the Housing Mortgage Finance Agency for the last piece of that, I shouldn't say the last piece, but the third piece of the puzzle. The last piece of the puzzle would be the Federal Home Loan Bank application, which has been submitted and was sponsored locally by Atlantic Stewardship Bank. So that's the four legs of the stool, if you will. So we were hoping, and we had some preliminary conversations, of course, with the governing body, the manager, about utilizing your municipal housing trust fund to an amount of approximately $500,000. When I left the last meeting, there was some uncertainty about the actual amount that was available for distribution from the municipal housing trust fund, but it would certainly be helpful. The county is going to be submitting their application or their recommendations, I should say, to Washington, to HUD, for the utilization of the home dollars, and it would certainly be helpful to have some indication from the council, if it was all possible, for our meeting tomorrow with the Housing Mortgage Finance Agency. So everyone's kind of looking to see who jumps first, if you will, but it would certainly be great to have the village, to be able to say that the village is in full-throated support of the project.
And I think if the council remembers the last public meeting, we adopted a resolution to endorse the application for the Bern County United Way and the Madeline Corp. To do the funding through the county home program. And this would be a separate resolution for consideration with regard to an endorsement for the use of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund monies, which is really what this is designed for, what the trust fund is designed for. I think we did circulate information with regard to the total amount of trust fund available, which I believe was someplace north of $850,000. And that's the consideration I think Tom is looking for our help. And I just want to remind the board, but this has been a long time coming. It started back in 2015 and had carried through the full planning board process, our settlement agreement with the Fair Share Housing Center, and this is all part of that same program. So.
Questions from the council members? Good. Tom, thank you again. As I mentioned last time, your reputation for your integrity and the kind of work that you do just precedes you, and we really enjoyed continuing to work with you on this, and I think we're getting to a great place, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right, Tom.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor.
So everyone's okay with the resolution on for June 12th? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll now go to...
I'm going to break protocol for 1 second, because I just realized that the next meeting won't be for 2 weeks from today. And I usually do my council reports a week after. And I know we have in the audience Deanna Chablik and Gwen Hauk. I want to thank them for putting together the wonderful event today with the Civics Youth Corps. We had the opportunity, Councilman Boyd, Councilman Walsh, and myself, to meet some really wonderful, bright-minded high school students. They're so impressive. And they had a chance to talk to us about how local government works, what are the things that are important to them. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to them. I thought it was a great exposure to really look at the future of Ridgewood. And the fact that they're so engaged now, at this age, I think is very impressive and wonderful. And I want to thank you guys for doing that, putting that together. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so with that, we'll go on with our presentations. The first is from Epic for an update on the Hudson Street parking garage. I believe Mike Epp from Tim Haas Architects is here to speak with us tonight. You can either stand at the podium or if you wish to sit, whichever you prefer.
I'll stand. Thank you.
Okay.
On behalf of Timothy Haas and Epic, again, thank
I
you
just
for the
need you to
opportunity
speak
come.
into the microphone.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So tonight, I did want to talk a little bit about the color palette that we've been working on and proposing for the garage. As you all are aware, our construction documents are done and in for permitting right now. Epic is finalizing their package to go out to all their subs and begin that construction process. So we're at that point in the process now where we need to finalize color selection so that when those products actually start to come in, we can make proper selection. So with that in mind, just wanted to talk quickly about what the garage is going to look like. You've all had a chance, I believe, to take a look at the boards that are in the back. If you haven't, please make yourself available to go see those. The garage, as we've discussed, is a precast garage. The lower portions of that garage are going to be a darker precast that will have a imprinted pattern on that will appear to be stone. That will have a little bit of a sandblast to it as well, to bring out some of the aggregate in the concrete. The higher portions of the garage will be a lighter precast, which will also have some sandblasting in, and that will draw out the aggregate that's in that will bring out a little bit of brown and blue aggregate color, actually. So that's somewhat of our color palette, is to pull that blue and brown color. The storefront that we're going to be using, we're going to use a dark bronze, which will again bring that brown color. We will have awnings on that to replicate some of your other storefronts here in town that will have a steel blue type of color to it. And the glass that's going to be used in the garage is also generally a clear glass, but it has just a hint of blue to the glass as well, and that has really to do with some of the chemical properties of the glass, but that's sort of how that works. The fencing that's going to be for security purposes, which is a decorative type of fencing, is also going to be a black or dark bronze type of color. And then there will be lettering at the intersection of South Broad and Hudson that will say Hudson Street Garage, and that will also be in that dark bronze color against the lighter color precast concrete. On the interior, the elevator lobby and stair area of the main lobby will have paint on each floor level that indicates or helps you to remember what floor level you were on. So in addition to the number, there will be a color. We've selected those as well, so you can see those are in the back. Those coordinate with the signage package that we've also put together, which we've pulled those colors straight from your color palette. So those signs will be a unique Ridgewood signage package that's a blue and gold type of color. Floors in the lobby area of the garage only will be stained concrete, so that will dress that lobby a little nicer than the rest of the parking areas. And lastly, there is a bike parking area that's in the garage near the elevator lobby and stair. However, it is segregated. It's pulled off to a little bit separate space, and it is divided by a knee wall, a 4-foot wall that will be a perforated metal panel that's going to be in a clear finish, so somewhat of an industrial look to it, and then a large graphic wall that's painted up to say bike parking and so on. There was signage within the garage, as I've mentioned. There's also signage on the outside of the garage. We know how important that approach is as you come down Hudson. So there'll be signage there on the garage that will indicate to everyone that this is the garage. And also, we've kind of looked at that, again, with using your color palette, that we believe that this may be a signage package that could be used on some of your other parking facilities, whether it's a surface lot or if you build a second garage. So there's some flexibility in that, and we can work through that with you when the time arises. That's the garage color palette in a nutshell and finishes. So obviously, any questions, please.
Questions? Councilman Sweden?
Thank you, Mayor. Do you have a start date or thereabouts when groundbreaking is going to happen?
I'll actually defer to Bill. I believe we're talking August. Is that right?
August 23rd? August 23rd? That was the date? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Precast concrete components, which is basically the garage itself, they would arrive in the middle of December.
Bill, I'm going to have you come up because we can't pick you up on the microphone. Thanks.
Hello?
Hello.
So go back. We're looking to be on site in probably the middle of August, if not the first week of August. With the precast concrete components, which are the main part of the garage, will start arriving in the middle of December, and we're looking to wrap things up by June of next year, probably the end of June. We're still working out some things with the utilities at the northeast corner, and for that reason, could be a little bit earlier. If we say middle of August, we might, if things work out, want to be there and do some work in that corner early to allow the utilities to come in and give them enough time to get out of our way, because they have a pole and utilities that run through what will be the footprint of the garage. So everything's on schedule. It's just, everything's good.
Thank you. Okay, that's it.
Councilman Walsh?
So it looks even better than, I mean, I can't wait for it to be finished. I think everybody can't wait for it to be finished. But I think that, I was talking with a resident who's got a property close by. I think everything is fitting in nicely. If it was a little higher, I think you would have had some challenges with light going to other buildings. So I think the design, I think the colors, I think everything's going to really make it look like a great garage and be functional too.
Councilman White?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm understanding that the colors are going to mimic Mount Carmel. Yes?
Well, not entirely, but yes, we are looking
Close.
at that. That church has a very monolithic type of gray color to it.
Right.
The variation that you see is when it's wet or when there's a shadow on it, because it is a three-dimensional type of stone. It's not flat. But yeah, so we're looking to that as inspiration, but it'll be a little different.
Okay. And then the other thing is it relates to, just very quickly, review with us traffic patterns once you begin in earnest, let's say end of August. what happens very quickly as far as the parking there and traffic flow.
Okay, well, the first thing is, as we told you from day one, we won't close the lot any earlier than we have to. So the people who park there now will be able to use it as late as possible, first of all. Secondly, we're still working out some things with our precast concrete subcontractor, who I know Mike had mentioned that we were going to be purchasing some of the project. We are, but the precast contractor's already been purchased and proceeding with the fabrication drawings for their product now. Hudson Street will have to, it'll definitely have to be closed for a week or so at the end of the project to do the last piece of the garage, because the crane has to be in the street. It's a very large crane. If you remember, the panels at the north end of the garage are for the most part, are solid. They're very heavy, so it's a large crane. The trucks would come in, we're looking at now, in on half of Hudson Street. We are going to try to keep half of Hudson Street open, but our intent is at night, except for that last week when we can't erect, we have to have the crane in the street. The crane will be on site for the rest of it, and our intent at this point is at night to be able to reopen Hudson Street if it has to be closed for 8 hours during the day.
Okay.
Clean, make sure it's clean and closed up. And I know that's especially important on the weekends.
Yes.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll say thank you. We've had a lot of communication with Epic. We meet every 2 weeks. Today was one of those meetings in the morning. We've been talking about the garage and planning and for a long time. It's really now becoming real. I mean, just when we look at the list of pending items getting shorter and shorter, we're kind of crossing these things off. Today for me saw the design for the commemorative plaque. That now put the name of village staff and council attached to that building. And it's coming along. I mean, it's tremendous. And I think that every single element in the design and the color has been well thought out. Just with the bike racks, what type of material we use, the height, so, from a safety perspective, even having the separate entrance, so you don't have to bang through the doors of the garage to get in with a bike. So many different things have gone into it. I think it's been so well thought out, and I appreciate the work that Epic has done and how professional they've been in with us in this. So,
if I may, it's very great working with you collectively as a client, because we like to give and take, and that bike rack came out of a discussion. How can we make it easier on the people using the garage? So we're happy to be able to work back and forth like that. And I agree that Mike did a fantastic job in taking, I think, your vision and designing the deck to look like that.
All right. No more questions, comments?
No.
No?
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is the Elks Club development. I have Rich Calby come up along with representatives from RSC Architects of Hackensack, New Jersey.
Sorry, Dylan. Dylan, apparently Files is not, no sound on Files. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council. With me tonight are two representatives from RSC Architects out of Hackensack. To my immediate left is Ralph Walker. To his left is Steve Botbile. They're representing RSC and have done some preliminary work on our Elks Club project. They originally engaged late in 2018 to develop a feasibility study to look at the Elks Club building, evaluate the condition of the building, determine what type of program would fit in there and what our needs were for Ridgewood Water, and additionally to come up with some really preliminary concepts, that included a renovation of the building and also some new development concepts. In early April, they came back in, met with myself, the village manager, the chief financial officer, and other representatives of Ridgewood Water, to review the report, and at that time we all decided collectively that we wanted them to also look into an additional new development concept. So they're here tonight to review those 4 concepts for you, including the renovation and the 3 new development concepts. We have a summary chart that will start, and then they'll walk through each of those, and we'll certainly take any questions along the way. Thank you.
So just as a recap, we were tasked with a feasibility study of the existing building. We did go through the building. We checked the condition of the building, the mechanicals, electrical, the different systems, the structure of the building. The structure, for the most part, was in good condition and able for reuse. And we interviewed the employees and staff of Ridgewood Water to develop the program, which is about 7,400 square feet in need for their use for this building, which fits into the existing 8,500 square foot building. So the next part was that we tasked, is we basically had done test fits. They're not designs of buildings, but test fits to prove that the program Ridgewood Water has can fit into the 7,400 square feet buildings, and various buildings require different square footages. So Ralph is going to walk you through now the options that came out of the feasibility study.
Thank you. So right now I'm on the slide that shows the summary, and each of the options that we're showing tonight are represented on that summary slide, and we can come back to that at the end if there's additional questions. The first concept, as Steve was mentioning, was to look at the renovation option, and for this we're really looking at maintaining the existing structure to the extent possible, doing primarily an interior renovation with improvements to the exterior and improvements to the facade, but maintaining a one-way driveway. And then we would accomplish 19 parking spaces in the rear of that lot, which would include a number of tandem parking spaces, which would be used primarily for village vehicles. In order to accomplish this, we were looking at a construction budget of approximately $1.657 million. And that would allow this building to be used in the state that it's in with major renovation. The second concept that we looked at was, and each of the next few concepts we're looking at then demolishing the existing building and just using it as a vacant site. And for anyone who's familiar with the site does have a significant slope to it, and that significant slope creates some interesting both opportunities and challenges. So in the second option that we looked at, the second concept is to create a 3-story building. In this case, it's a regularized shape, more of a square building. We're able to accomplish approximately 7,500 square feet in this setup. It allows us to get a 2-way drive in and out of the site, creates 19 parking spaces, and it's for a budget of approximately $2.3 million. A couple of key advantages of this concept versus the renovation. One is that you have a 2-way drive in and out for ease of traffic flow. Second, we have a regularized footprint, so we're able to really design the building around the needs of the department. And then third, it is 19 complete parking spaces with no tandems in this particular case. The third concept that we looked at was to look at a 4-story concept. In this particular concept, we were looking at trying to maximize the parking, understanding the particular needs of the department and the needs of the village. We were looking to say what is our best opportunity to maximize the site from a parking perspective. This concept arrives at 24 parking spaces, but there's 2 key disadvantages to this concept. One is that it is the highest construction budget at $2.975 million. And the building is larger than your overall need, but would allow for some growth. It's also a less efficient building due to the footprint constraint and the size of it. As we go up story over story, we lose some efficiency because we're adding more stairs and elevators and things like that for each floor. So there's less useful square footage in this particular footprint. So that's the third concept we have on the table. And then finally, the fourth concept would be to come back with a new 2-story building similar to what's currently there, but instead of renovating, it would be a tear down and reconstruction. What this allows us to do is to reconfigure the building, both under, using new construction techniques, but also to reconfigure it specific to your needs. It allows us to get a in and out or a two-way drive into the site. But one of the key limitations is that we're only able to accomplish 14 parking spaces on the site. It does have a budget of $2.3 million, and I will note that both Concept 2 and Concept 4 are approximately the same cost. So one item that we've noted as we've been looking at this is if you choose to go for a new construction option, we can explore both of those options under essentially the same budget for some early design explorations. Finally, just the image shown here when we get to questions and answers is really just showing a very simple concept of what might happen if we go towards a two-story building. We do think there's an opportunity to improve the streetscape and to create something that is more in line with the neighborhood and the adjacent buildings. We also think that regardless if it's a two-story, three-story, or four-story building, we can accomplish something that is appropriate in scale to the street overall. So we are thinking about that. We know that this is, again, to reiterate what Steve was saying, this is early concept. This is not design. It's really just doing some test fitting to see what you can accomplish and for what level of budget. With that, I'll take any questions.
Dr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mayor. I was reading through the report, and one of the benefits that it mentioned for new construction was energy efficient, mechanical systems and everything else. But wouldn't that also be true for renovation? Because if you're going to replace all those systems, I would imagine you would replace them with the same kind of...
We would certainly improve the condition of the existing building from an energy efficiency standpoint. One of the key places where you get a higher advantage in new construction is the thermal envelope of the building. So by constructing the exterior walls in a different manner than traditional construction or historic construction, we are able to get a higher level of energy efficiency if that's one of the overall goals.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Walsh?
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. So from the data and from the conversations we've had, it states there's going to be 27 employees. So if we have clients, customers coming, we don't even have enough parking there for our employees. So what's the expectation as to where the employees are going to park? Because from what I understand, this was supposed to be, the whole idea behind it. We purchased it for $1.3 million. So this is a $4 million project, and there's not even enough parking for the employees that are going to be there. So that's a challenge because they're not going to go into the parking lot behind, I would imagine. So
I
guess
should answer that question.
Yeah, so that's glaring.
So we have 27 employees, but in addition to that, we have 11 village vehicles. So we have a total need of 38 parking spaces. Currently, 18 of those vehicles, whether they be employees or village vehicles, park today at the Village Hall property. So our net need is 20, which in every scenario but the 4-story we are deficient, but the 2-story renovation and 2-story or 3-story new construction are short by 1. We achieve 19 spaces on site versus the 20 that we need.
Where are the employees going to park then? Because I'm assuming you're not going to take the customer spots with employees if the whole idea was to bring it there so the customers would come.
There will be no customer parking in the back lot. There'll be customer parking on the street, similar to what parking we have today in front of Village Hall on the street. We want to maintain the back lot for just authorized vehicles only, because the main entrance to customer service will be on that street level, not in the back.
Okay.
There will also be an entrance from the Village Hall parking lot, too, where customers can technically walk through the property as well, but they'd have to go up the drive to enter the front of the building.
Okay. So I mean, that, to me, that's, I'm stuck on that for a minute, because that's a challenge. I mean, you've got, if you're, I mean, if all the spots are taken for Village Hall, the library, and all the other businesses along there, how many spots are out there in the front? I mean, there's not that many spots.
If you look at the 2-story renovation option or the 3-story new construction, we would only increase our need on-site of the Village Hall property by 1 space versus today. Because currently we're using 18 spaces.
Currently, the water department uses 18 spaces in the village.
Correct.
For just Village Hall employees and water department, or just water department employees.
Employees.
And trucks.
Correct.
Or vehicles.
Yes.
Okay. So, so you're essentially saying no customers will be there, so you're going to move 14 of those cars over, right? In theory?
Well, we're going to have an addition of vehicles because we're bringing people there that aren't at Village Hall currently. So we're not moving any over. We're just covering the addition that we need on site at the new property.
Maybe I can restate it a different way. I think the key to note is that with this property, there's a net gain of however many spots we accomplish, be it 19, 14, or 24, depending on the configuration. If you look at the total between the Village Hall lot and this property. But I think the key that he's noting is that there is the advantage of this property is that you're able to consolidate all of the employees in a single location, which again creates this parking need, which you're identifying.
Right. I think though when it was first suggested to us that it was going to be all in one. It was going to be encapsulated in one lot, and it was going to manage the water department from that one location. So now it's technically 3 locations. It's street parking, it's that, and then it's keeping the spots that I thought we were going to free up from whoever was so.
Some portion of those, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I have right now. If I have another one,
I mean, is there a way to, why can't we just put, say, 2 spots for customers? But, put them in a way so it's sort of easy in and out. They don't have to go and look for a spot in the back. Maybe proper signage and saying customer parking here. Because, how much time do customers spend at Ridgewood Water typically?
Then you have to give them access to that main level. It has to be ADA compliant, and we'll have to make the back entrance public instead of secure.
But at least have the option of parking in the back and walking around if you wanted to, no?
You do.
Yeah.
And I'll just highlight on concept 3, and this is not a recommendation of one concept versus another, but
right.
Just to talk about kind of the best case scenario for parking. If parking becomes the critical issue, you do have spaces that are closest to the street in concept 3. So you could say the spaces that are closest to the throat of the driveway become visitor spaces, and then employee spaces continue deeper into the site. The disadvantage is that this version is the most expensive version and also the least efficient from a building perspective. If we go back to concept 2 for a second, just to relay that one in a different way, with the 3-story option, if you did designate, let's say, 2 spaces as public spaces or visitor spaces, just to use that as a concept for a second, then the expectation would be that they would park, walk back up the hill, up the drive, and then enter into the building. And I think realistically, you would probably find more people would want to try and park in front if there's available spots, or perhaps park across the street.
Councilman Boyd?
Thank you. I have to voice Councilman Walsh's concern as well. This was supposed to be a kind of a consumer-friendly building, and it seems not to be that case at all. So I'm hoping we can figure out a way to put some spaces back there for some of our residents to be able to park there, and I'm just going to ask you to be creative if you can. The second question I have is, how are we going to pay for this?
Capital funding?
It would be through bond ordinance. Is how
So we're going to do a bond ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right, that's it, thanks.
Thank you. I looked at the plan. One of the issues was this parking thing, and I don't want to have to go for a more expensive option to get something that I think should be kind of basic and being included in the project already. Can we go back to the renovation one? Is there any space on either side of the building to have sort of like a 15-minute parking just for customer parking? I mean, do we know what the average time is that a customer spends in Ridgewood Water? I would imagine it's not that long.
It's not that very long. Unless they have a bill complaint, then they'll be there for long.
So we have the complaint parking in the back, and then, no, I'm just kidding. But I mean, is there any room? I know this is not maybe to scale, but any possibility of doing something like that?
I think we could certainly look at the options there. The challenge, just to be clear about the challenge with the existing driveway and the existing building, is that you have a very steep slope, and it is a narrow driveway with a number of encroachments. Now, that said, the portion of the building, I don't know if this has a pointer on it. Yeah, there we go. The portion of the building to the top of the page where the driveway is, if you notice there's a wing wall that kind of juts out towards the top of the page. That's basically a screen wall for some equipment, things like that. We could certainly look into an option of either relocating that equipment or reconfiguring that and trying to create something that allowed for 1 or 2 parking spaces. But I do want to highlight that because of the slope and because of the existing configuration, it's probably not going to be ideal. So we want to be careful about that. That option remains also in the new construction options, and certainly we hear the comment and we can come back with a version that shows that.
Yeah, I mean, when this was in a concept phase and we asked questions, it was that the customers were going to be coming, the customers, and I said, I can't imagine people coming, and they said tons and tons and tons of customers come. So now there's not even a spot for the customers, so it makes that whole argument moot. So
there's no spot on site, but there's spots on the street, which would be the closest to the entrance.
But they compete with Village Hall, the library, and
no one parks there today.
Nobody parks there?
No.
I see people parked there every day.
In front of the Elks Club?
I see people parked all along
Okay.
there. You know, if there's a function at any of them, if there's overflow, or, you know.
Well, I think, Rich, I think what you're saying is you would create new spaces in front of the Elks Club. So you're not talking about the existing spaces in front of the library and Village Hall right now. You would create on street. You would just stripe.
There's nothing marked there today at all.
Right.
So would they be marked Ridgewood Water customers only?
We could put signage up, put a time limit to it, ends at 4 o'clock. That was the thought, because the entrance is right there. So they could get out of their vehicle, they could walk in, get out, and leave. It could even be 15-minute parking, if you want to consider that. That was my thought, just to maximize the use in the back for the village vehicles and the employees to help alleviate the problem we have currently at this site.
So, I mean, if this came to the planning board, it would probably be rejected for not having enough parking. Right.
It's a courtesy review at the planning board. Still, we take any comments they have.
Saying if it was Joe Q. Public, it would be rejected. So.
Any more questions? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If we could take one more item out of order, Mayor, it would be, sorry, I have to find it. It's 9E D4, 94, New Jersey Future Aging Friendly Community, because we have Sheila Brogan from Age Friendly Ridgewood here.
Okay, great.
So I'd appreciate if we could do that. Thank you. So let's go to that. So this is information from New Jersey Future about developing an age-friendly community It's been requested that Age-Friendly Ridgewood, by Age-Friendly Ridgewood, that we look at this. And I'll have Sheila Brogan kind of give a summary of what goes on with this process and what it commits the village to, or what we have to do to follow this plan.
Want to come up? Thank you. Yeah, please. Yes, thank you.
No, you have to stand.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Before I start, could I have 2 minutes? Because today we had our bus event where we had 21 people, two groups of people, 2 bus trips, and we did a tour of Ridgewood, and we had stops. But I just want to say thank you to the village, because you have amazing employees here. And so as our bus traveled, driven by Billy, who couldn't have been nicer, what we did is we outreach to people in Ridgewood who are thinking about limiting their driving and hadn't really experienced using the senior bus. So that was our point. And I think we did a great job, because we had 21 people, 18 of which had never set foot in that bus before. Wow. And they had such a great time. So we did a little history of Ridgewood as we drove around, and we stopped in town, and Tony from Mango Jam and Joan Groom, so we had the Guild and the Chamber, they hopped on the bus and gave a talk about what they're doing in Ridgewood. Then we came over to Village Hall, and we had the stars really come out with Heather, Janet Fricky, Beth Spinato, and Deanna Shablik. And each gave remarkable, welcoming, and informational talks about what we're doing for older adults. In Ridgewood, we had the library, Robin Ritter and Carrie Wallace hop on, and they brought brochures and information. We covered the new van, and Janet had pictures of your new van, so and very excited about it. And then we went over to the stable where Nancy Bigos invited everyone to the butterfly garden in the back, and talked a little bit about Graydon and the garden. And I sent you an email today, but I just wanted to reiterate some of the comments that we got. And some are so heartfelt. Thank you for a spectacular day in Ridgewood, one of the very best, learning so much about this glorious village. It was a joy to be on the bus today, meeting and learning from the wonderful and creative guests who gave us information on the bus. Each stop added to the adventure with a finale at the stable, transformation with the beauty and serenity of the botanical and Zen garden. This was particularly meaningful to me, since my husband, who has passed, had spent many loving days just behind in the by the Hohokus Brook we used to sit. It will take me several days to absorb all the information I received today and to begin to implement much of it in my daily life. I thought that was really wonderful. But we got many comments, but it really came alive because of the people who hopped on our bus today and really showed how much they care about Ridgewood and our older adults. So I just plug for that today.
So Sheila?
Yes.
What was in the goodie bag?
Oh, the goodie bags were filled with, we got the Downtown magazine from Mango Jam. They also gave cocktail napkins, and there was an expectation maybe I would be serving cocktails. That was not happening on our bus. But there were homemade cookies and iced tea, a little snack bag. There were flyers about the Graydon Pool and about the breakfast that Age Friendly will do. and then information on resources for older adults. And the Chamber gave us information, and the Chamber actually gave each person on the bus a discount card to be used in town. So at the Daily Treat, it's a 10% off with that card. So that was like, woo. So anyway, and then anyways, there was just lots of information in it, and it was, and everybody contributed. That was the beauty of it. I got flyers from everybody who participated. And the library, I don't know, you probably knew this, I didn't know, but they will make home visits to drop off books or things from the library. And I didn't know that, nor did any of the people who were on the bus. And if you're not feeling well for a period of time, what a gift that is. So, great job, everybody, really. Thank you. So, New Jersey Future. So thank you for that little, letting me talk about that, because it was an exciting day. New Jersey Future. So you might recall that last year, we had New Jersey Future, Age-Friendly Ridgewood, were under the Taub Foundation. It was funded by Taub. Had New Jersey Future come in and walk Ridgewood, really the downtown area. And last August, they gave a 63-page report really analyzing Ridgewood in terms of its age friendliness, looking at housing issues, pedestrian safety, traffic, engagement opportunities for older adults in our town, and a number of recommendations. Some might be very ones that you will be interested to implement, maybe some not. But we haven't really gone any further with that. The Taub Foundation has recently given New Jersey Futures another grant to work with the 5 towns, or as many who want to, of those 5 towns, to look at those recommendations and to really hold a series of meetings. So they'll walk us through a process that will evaluate those recommendations. And the commitment really is that the town will assign a key person to be the liaison with New Jersey Futures, and that elected officials and town employees and others in the village will work together to look at those recommendations. So your commitment, and certainly if you would like Age-Friendly Ridgewood's help, you will establish a project committee, with people in the town, but they will work with New Jersey Future. Your commitment is, to me it looks like about 4 meetings. First meeting is to get a sense of what does really age-friendly communities look like. What are the kinds of aspects in a community that would be age-friendly? And the next meeting would be to look at the recommendations in the report. And you all received that report back in the fall. I don't know. It was a pretty heavy lift, that 63 pages, but there's a lot of great information in it. We'd look at those recommendations. The commitment, and I talked to Heather about this, is not necessarily that you will implement everything, but that you'll look at all the recommendations, make determinations of what's reasonable, responsible, appropriate, and then what are the action steps that need to happen, and maybe it's a 5-year plan. I take, for instance, sidewalk improvements. If you choose to take a recommendation that is improving sidewalks, then, as you already do, you will continue to put money into your capital to improve, and then there are suggestions about how we really announce those improvements. How do people track that have those improvements. That's a recommendation, that you have some kind of on your website, a tracking system as to this is what's been accomplished, this is what still needs to get done. So maybe you would stop hearing that, when are you going to do it, because now we have more of a plan in place. They conduct this land use assessment recommendation prioritizing meeting. That would be that second meeting. And and as we're doing the work, New Jersey Futures drafts the plan. So again, the grant from Taub is paying for them to really facilitate and then help with that writing of the report, and then we'll stay a little bit longer to see what help they could do in terms of encouraging implementation. So the implementation plan outlines the action steps a community follows to undertake recommendations identified in the age-friendly community assessment. So that was the assessment they did last year. A typical implementation plan is designed to answer the following questions: what needs to be done, what should be done, who should be responsible for doing it, approximately what's the cost to do it, and what are the funding sources. So this is the process that they take us through. There is a cost to the village in terms of time, but the work of New Jersey Futures is covered under the Taub Foundation. So the process would be, if you're interested, there's a resolution. I think you might have received that, a resolution to pass. I have kept New Jersey Futures informed that we met with the mayor, that tonight you were going to take a look at this, and then if you were so inclined, that hopefully in June you would pass that resolution and we could be on their docket to then start the process. We're a little behind. If in your package you had a timeline, it says I think April and stuff. That's when they first started. But when I just connected with New Jersey Futures just to tell them what the process, and I got a very enthusiastic response back, which was great. So, the timeline is a little flexible. They understood. And I said, you have a process, and we need to honor that process, which is to discuss, give it thought, and then if you so choose to do the resolution at the next meeting. So, any other questions?
So thank you. And this is one of the things when we're talking, kind of the conditions that this calls for in terms of creating more age-friendly communities are really aspirational conditions. And it talks about having the number of destinations per square mile, and obviously we want accessibility, walkability, mixed-use CBD. They talk about access to public transportation, a well-connected network of local streets. All these, I think, are great things for us who want to, kind of achieve, anyway. But with the benefit of being, towards creating a more age-friendly community, I think it would be a wonderful effort. I'm obviously supportive of it, and I hope that we can move forward with support from the council.
I think we also, the report we gave to NV5, and I see this as also helping us to again think as you are going through your master plan, just as part of that. Not simple, I'm sure, is the creation of more covered bus stops, since we see a lot of people on some of our busiest routes for public working with New Jersey Transit, standing out in the rain. And perhaps there are opportunities, I don't know, but there might be opportunities, but that's one thing they point out to us. So I think it's worth it. I'm so glad that you're supportive. Thank you, Mayor. But
Thank you.
I'm sure it has
Sheila, just a quick question. So the Taub Foundation is going to be, this is for the grant, yes? Is the 3-year grant?
The age-friendly initiative was a 3-year grant, which ends in October. We have been told that they they're going to be talking to us about extending it for 2 more years. Maybe not to the level for the age-friendly Ridgewood that they have. They haven't talked to us. Separately, they've given money to New Jersey Futures to do this. So this is not part of the grant that they give to the community center advisory board. No, is that yes? That's it. The nonprofit that was established. So that money goes to them, and then it's used to fund. We've been funding the bus on Wednesdays and things like that.
So it sounds like we can fold some of the learnings that come through this into our master plan very easily. Yeah.
I see the connection, and that's why Beth and I thought it would be very important for NV5 to see it, and they have it listed on their website as a resource. And just recently, you were part of that too, Jeff. You were at our steering committee meeting where NV5 did a focus group with the seniors and or older adults, excuse me. We're trying to get rid of that word, seniors.
Elders.
People don't seem to like that as well either. But in any case, it was very interesting to listen to our older adults and some of the issues that they have. So, very insightful.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, by the way. Yeah.
Councilman Seaton?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sheila, and thank you to Beth for all the work that you've put into this. I just had a quick question. Is this, would the plan be beneficial or helpful if we were to go out and get grants to help offset some of the costs to fund some of the initiatives that are included in it?
I believe that once you look at the recommendations, you do have to look for funding sources. So, in fact, you may need grants. There may be some federal dollars or state dollars for transportation upgrades, if that's it. And some probably will just fall upon the village. But again, these recommendations should be looked at and analyzed, and are they appropriate? Can we afford them? Is this where we want to go? And maybe it's not something we can do in a year, but it is part of your 5-year lookout as to what you want to do in those areas. I mean, housing. You've already done your fair housing requirements, and so whether in fact any of those housing, but there are some interesting things, like can we encourage shared housing where in fact I'm an older person living alone in my house. Would it be beneficial to be able for me to have somebody else move in and make that allowable? There's the accessory dwellings. Whether, in fact, that's could be for Ridgewood. Some communities are looking at that. That's a recommendation to look at. So this gives us an opportunity, I think, to look, digest, think, talk. Some may be like, yeah, this makes sense, or maybe it doesn't. But it opens up that conversation, and it lets us think a little outside the box, I think. Gives us an opportunity.
Good. Thank you. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Councilman Walsh?
I'm just going to reiterate what everybody said. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheila.
So, can I tell them that it looks like you would go for a resolution next?
We'll have the resolution on for June 12th, and it looks like you have at least 4 here who are in favor of it, so that's good.
I thank you very much for your interest and your support. Really, we couldn't do all the things we're doing, and for the new bus and taking over Wednesdays. Really, it's a wonderful partnership. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll now move on to our discussion items in order. Ridgewood Water awarding contract for roof repairs for various Ridgewood Water properties. This is the second year of continuing improvements to facilities. 11 roof structures were improved in 2018, and 8 are proposed for this year. We went out for bid. The low bidder was American Construction Chimney and Roofing Specialists at $39,600. They are out of Cliffside Park, New Jersey. Funding is in the water utility capital budget. Okay. The next item is awarding a state contract for geographic information system for data migration. This is a professional services agreement for data migration of Ridgewood Water's geographic information systems under state contract. The state contract is to Civil Solutions of Hamilton, New Jersey, in an amount not to exceed $18,900. This funding is available in the 2019 water operating budget. The next item is awarding a Sourcewell cooperative contract for a 2019 Ford Escape. It's a purchase of a 2019 Ford Escape, as I said, for the Water Department under Sourcewell, which is cooperative purchasing, in the amount of $24,778. This is required for the Department's Public Works Inspector for transport to and from project assignments. This is a new position, so a new vehicle is needed. This is also in the 2019 water capital budget. The next item, parking was removed from the agenda. The next item is under budget. Awards Sourcewell cooperative contract for a stump grinder for the Parks Department. This is a purchase of a Bandit trunk stump grinder and optional accessories in the amount of $20,498.28. Sourcewell, again, is a cooperative purchasing contract. The vendor is Northeastern Arborist Supply out of Woodland Park, New Jersey. This was actually approved in the 2016 capital budget, and this additional money is still in there, so we're going to use that money.
Heather, you're $2 over, by the way.
And what I was told, I noticed that myself, what I was told is that we can take the $2.28 out of operating. That's okay.
Can you find it? That's the question. Yes?
We'll find it. We'll find it. The next one is, again, awarding a contract under Sourcewell. This is 2019 Ford F-250 pickup. This is for the Division of Engineering. This is National Auto Fleet Group of Watsonville, California is the vendor. This will have a ability for four-wheel drive as well as equipped for snow plowing operations. We're actually buying the snow plow separately for this vehicle because the cooperative price is higher than our local supplier of snow plows. The one that's replacing was actually handed down from the street division to our public works inspector for engineering, and so this is replacing that older vehicle. And so there'll be obviously more reliable service, and also we'll be able to add it to snow plowing operations, which the current vehicle cannot do. The next item is geographic information systems for various departments. This is purchase of GIS software. This is for the water department and adding GIS software to engineering, building, health, IT, signal, water pollution control facility, and other departments for the use of mapping, zoning, and asset management. This is the second phase of the project that was discussed at past budget meetings. The software will work in conjunction with Spatial Data Logic, or Municipality in a Box, and for the water department, it will serve as a primary portal of assets and mapping of all water lines, junctions, pump houses, and wells. There is a sole source provider for this. It's Esri of Redlands, California, and its amount not to exceed $75,180. The next one is the reappropriation of, sidewalks for West Glen. Award partial contract for sidewalks at West Glen. We had received bids in February of this year for resurfacing and repair of various village streets, which includes sidewalks. The low bid was American Asphalt and Milling Services of Kearney, New Jersey. It's funded from the 2019 capital budget. At this time, there is a line item in that for West Glen Avenue sidewalk construction in the amount of $50,000. This will continue the sidewalk construction on West Glen Avenue from Hillcrest Road to the going up the hill. If you're going up the hill, it's on the left-hand side, and that's where the sidewalks will be placed. And they'll go up as far as they can until they run out of money with the $50,000. We may have to work with the neighbors, because we know that some of them have created parking spaces, but this will obviously make it much safer for people walking on West Glen. And eventually, depending on funding, we hope to go all the way up to our Engine 31.
Yeah.
So.
Question, Heather, on that area where they're going to put the asphalt. There are walls that kind of abut people's properties. Do we need to?
Many of them are in the public right-of-way. They're in our right-of-way.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to notify those homeowners and then work with them to be able to take back the amount of right-of-way that is ours in order to construct the sidewalks.
So that's really our property that they've kind of...
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And it may not be the
Interesting.
present owner. It could have been 2 owners
Yeah.
ago who did it, and they may not even be aware of the fact they're in our right-of-way. But honestly, in order to do these sidewalks, we're going to have to take some of that back.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next one is the reappropriation of capital funds for a tree inventory. So the Shade Tree Commission is recommending to repurpose the funds left in last year's capital account for tree replacement for a tree inventory of all village streets. It's necessary to apply for major tree planting, maintenance, and preservation projects. And we can possibly get some grants if we do this. Is that correct? And I'll let Councilman Seaton talk about it a little bit more, because I know that the Shade Tree Commission has really worked on this diligently.
Thank you, Heather. Yeah, so there was tree replacement money in last year's capital budget. It was about $50,000, and for whatever reason, that didn't get spent last year in planting trees, but we did plant about 100 trees or so through the paving budget, and then some more trees through Adopt a Tree. So we were faced with, I guess, 3 options looking at this money that was left over. We could either use it to plant trees, which no action would be needed on the village council's part. We would just go and plant the trees. The other 2 options were to partially fund some improvements to one side of the street downtown to redo the tree pits, because we have a new design and everything else for that. And then the other option that ended up becoming the recommendation was to use it for a tree inventory. So then what the tree inventory would help us do is the last kind of piece of the puzzle that we need to basically go out and apply for any shade tree related grant in the state of New Jersey. So you had to become a commission first, which we did. We did all the training and everything else. We needed a 5-year plan, which we got a grant for, and we hired a consultant who did the 5-year plan. Now, to go for some grants through the New Jersey Shade Tree Federation, you need a tree inventory, and those grants range from $30,000 to $300,000. So we thought, well, you could get a one-time planting, and that would be pretty good. But with this, I mean, if we got one of the bigger grants, and those are available every year, you could do a lot for maintenance and planting and everything else going forward in the future. It would also be, I think, a good tool for the Parks Department and engineering, because then they could identify any trees that might be hazardous in heavily trafficked pedestrian areas by the hospital or schools or downtown or anything like that. And we're currently in the process of applying for a $10,000 grant to offset some of the costs for the tree inventory. So I know we've applied for grants, I think 2, maybe 3 years to try and get this going, and we haven't been successful. So having the opportunity, or the Shade Trees Commission's recommendation would be to use this to do the tree inventory, and then that way, moving forward, we could help to augment the Shade Tree Division's efforts throughout the village and really catch up on tree maintenance, which has been lacking for so many years. So I figured I'd bring it to the council and get a decision one way or the other, and I could answer any questions anybody has, hopefully.
Questions, Councilman Walsh?
No, I don't have any.
Councilman Boyd?
I don't.
And then just one question, because we had talked about, the Shade Tree Commission had come in, CBDAC, and also talked here about eventually replacing some of the tree wells in town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that the first step would be to get rid of the brick bands and so on, but eventually would be to replace the trees. Does this set us back on that plan at all for the tree replacement?
Well, I believe engineering is going out to bid, so we'd have like an idea of how much it costs, but then we'd have to fund it. So some of the funding, and that's why I wanted to bring it to the council, and I couldn't really say one way or the other to the Shade Tree Commission, because that was one of the other options that we talked about, and it was kind of debated for several months, because we really wanted to get moving with the downtown tree project and have at least one demonstration area, have like one side of the street where you could say, look, this is what we're trying to do, and then expand it. But then we also thought that, well, that's one area of the downtown is highly visible, and that might be good, but this could really help to catch up on maintenance and help with, like safety issues, because a tree could look perfectly healthy and be completely hollow inside and,
like the grading tree.
Fall apart, yeah, or the tree in my backyard that came down 2 years ago. It was, that was it. So that was the discussion. Like I said, I wanted to bring it here because I know that was the other option was to fund a portion of the downtown improvements.
Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one is an annual resolution. This is required to allow the tax collector to substitute 2 mailings of the tax sale notices in lieu of 2 legal notices. It also permits the tax collector to add the cost of $25 per mailing to the amount sold at tax sale. The tax sale is expected to be held in October of this year. The next one is awarding contract under state contract for bulletproof vests. 16 bulletproof vests will be replaced. It's under state contract from Lawman Police Supply of Pennsauken, New Jersey. It's an amount not to exceed $23,248. Each officer receiving a new bulletproof vest is replacing a vest that is over 5 years old. At the end of 5 years, all vests must be replaced because all guarantees and warranties from the manufacturing company expire. There's funding in various capital accounts, and so we're looking for that approval. Okay, the next one is the declaring property surplus. It's a 2000 Packer truck. It needs extensive engine work. It's really too much money to repair it. It's not roadworthy at all. And so we're going to declare it surplus and then possibly try to sell it on Gov Deals. The next one is update on Maple Park Field permanent lighting. What I wanted to let you know is plans for the purchase and installation of field lights on Maple Park. There's a component of the project that will require an infrastructure improvement. Currently, there is some electricity on Maple Park. The scoreboard obviously is lit up. There may be some lights also. However, in order to do the upgrade with the poles and the LED lights that are down facing that we had the presentation on previously, the estimate is approximately $50,000 to upgrade. We don't know the exact amount. We have reached out to PSE&G repeatedly and has not yet heard back from them. So we're giving it our best estimate. I still want to remind you, despite this, the Bergen County grant that we applied for is $145,000. The sports groups are contributing $140,000. The Village of Ridgewood would now be $195,000 because it would be the additional $50,000 for the power. So basically, we're getting $285,000 of the purchase price if we receive the grant, covered by outside sources. And the grant application itself did reflect the $50,000 for the power upgrade, but it's not part of the request for the $145,000. So I just wanted to make you aware of it. It came to our attention last week, so after the presentation. So I just wanted to make you aware it's another $50,000.
So it's $50,000 for the electrical upgrade, is that what you said?
Correct,
Okay.
and that's our estimate. Again, we don't know for sure. Hopefully PSE&G will get back to us. I'm sure they will eventually, but they have not yet.
And was this information, this new updated amount, shared with the sports groups to see if they're willing to take a proportionate share in this?
It hasn't been, and I could certainly reach out to them because they may be willing to. I'll let them know.
Yeah, I think it's a good
Okay.
idea.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. So the next one is under policy, and so the first one is the Ridgewood parking permits for the CBD building owners. I know Mayor Hache, you wanted this on there.
Yeah, so this is more of a consideration on amending the existing ordinance. It was brought to my attention by a commercial property owner in town who happens to work in town every day. He was somewhat surprised when he tried to purchase a resident parking pass and was told that it was almost $2,000. But he says, no, but I'm a property owner in town. He says, no, yeah, but you're not a resident. So he owns a property in town, a commercial property, works in that property every day, but is not a resident, so coming into Village Hall, he will be treated as a non-resident in terms of parking purposes. I know that I imagine that the original intent of the ordinance regulating resident parking passes only contemplated residents who want to park in the downtown to
Right.
travel to New York City, but not the other way around.
Correct.
So I want to know if there's any support for amending the ordinance to include a commercial property owner who would use that parking space to commute into the town and offer them the regular resident parking rate.
And obviously, as a building owner, he's paying taxes to the village, just as our residents are.
Yes.
Are there a
And I
lot
think
of
that's
those,
part of it
Ramon?
as
Do you know?
well.
Just a couple?
There's only, I would
Yeah.
say, a handful.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely the key in this is that they have to say that they are working in that location, because we have lots of property owners who don't work here.
Right.
And we don't want them, renting out the space, them getting, and then, kind of double dipping.
So it would be the building owner, himself, herself, owns the building, and they work in a part of that building that they
Yeah.
own?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then I would imagine for the parking permit, they have to be issued to a particular, can we issue a
Well,
particular license plate?
Well, the RPP is actually issued up to 3 on one permit, so, but obviously you can only use it once, one car at a time.
Right.
But if they had 2 different cars, because that's what we allow for our other RPPs,
Yeah.
so it would be the same type of.
But we do
rules.
verify that it's a registration to that particular.
Oh, right, we could verify that, who the building owner was, and then, in fact, that person worked in that building. We could verify that. Everyone's okay with, okay, so we'll have an amendment for that then, for June 12th. The next one is the outdoor cafe fees. And looking at the fees and having people pay for the fees, it's come to our attention that for those locations that have both chairs and benches, they will pay a much higher fee than those who have just chairs. So our current fees are 1 to 4 chairs, $100, 5 to 12 or $175, 13 to 20 or $300, and over 20 chairs is $450, where benches are $100 each. Some restaurants have both chairs and benches. One is Ben & Jerry's, and the other is East Coast Burger. So under the current fee ordinance, East Coast Burger has paid $650. They're at the maximum, over 20 chairs, and then 2 benches. Ben & Jerry's would pay $1,150 because they also are at the maximum number of chairs, and they have 7 benches. So I just wanted to point out to you that I was surprised actually how many restaurants have over 20 chairs, and there is a list in your packet for that. So the recommendation is that this year the maximum fee will be $450 for 20 plus chairs and or a combination of benches, if the council's agreeable. So we would amend the current fee ordinance to do so, and we would owe $200 back to East Coast Burger. Going forward in 2020, the recommendation is to create an additional category for 30-plus chairs and or a combination of benches at $550. And then you may also want to consider one more category for 40-plus chairs. Many of these restaurants with 48, 52, 56, 60 chairs outside have more capacity outside than many of our restaurants have inside. So really, for them to spend $650, maybe, for the additional income that's coming in during those outdoor cafe months, that's up to the council. So I just really want you to discuss. First of all, let's start with a recommendation that the maximum fee this year is $450. Does everyone agree that and it's a combination of 20 chairs and or benches?
Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's seating. So how many can you fit on a bench? If you've got a bunch of little children, maybe 3.
Yeah,
If you've got
exactly.
2, adults, maybe 2. I mean, so I think that if they're over 20, then yeah, that would be fair.
Okay. So you're okay with that recommendation to keep it at $450 as a max this
Yes.
year? Okay, then the next question is, for 2020, we could have just one additional category for 30-plus chairs and/or combination of benches at a fee of $550, or we could have two additional categories, which is the over 30 is $550, and then over 40 would be $650. That's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to determine if it's really seating, how many people can fit on a bench. So I don't think you can fit more than 3.
But if you look,
so
the
if you
ones
included that in the number of chairs,
right.
right?
So what I'm saying is the ones, in other words, for that final possibility for 40-plus chairs, we currently have 4 that are that range from 48 to 60 additional spots. So therefore, it's a little bit maybe more fair to do it that way, because for those who have 30-plus, right, up to 30, and then you go, some people have 60, and they would be paying the same amount as someone who had 30.
Yeah.
So that's why that recommendation's there. So I just want to make sure you're okay with that. And this is for 2020. This is not this year.
Yeah.
You're okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we may actually enact both of those in this ordinance so that we have the fee then for next year as well. Okay. The next one is for operations, endorsing the Historic Preservation Grant for the James Rose Center. So the James Rose Center, as you know, is on Ridgewood Avenue, kind of catty corner across from the high school. It's a 501c3 not-for-profit educational foundation. It's the former home of landscape architect James Rose. They're seeking a $50,000 grant from the Bergen County Open Space Trust to support their ongoing efforts to repair and improve the rehabilitation of the southern flat roof. So they are required to come to us to include it on an agenda and gauging public support. So I'm asking you if you're willing to adopt a resolution, which would be considered on June 12th. We do this similarly for things like community development block grants. It doesn't obligate any of our funding. It's just to endorse their application since they are located in Ridgewood.
There's no matching grant on this. We're just getting money from Bergen County, period.
We just are endorsing their
Okay, got it.
application. That's all we're doing.
All right, yeah.
So yes? Okay, great. So I think that is it.
All right. Got through it all? Yeah, we did. With that, we'll go back to public comments, not to exceed 5 minutes per person.
So close.
Good evening.
Good evening. Janice Willett, 207 Prospect Street. Just want to start out by saying 10 days till Graydon opens. Yay. But that's not why I'm here tonight. I'm here because at the May 1st council meeting, a resident cited information provided by the village manager indicating that voter turnout for Board of Ed elections is higher in April than in November. That information first appeared at the council meeting last July 18th, when the council voted 3-2 to move the Board of Ed elections back to April. After that meeting, I looked at the chart, which was posted online, and had a number of questions about the accuracy of the numbers. So for the record, I detailed my questions in an email to the village manager, copied the council, and have received no response to my questions. But now that these numbers have surfaced again, I guess I would have thought that they had been debunked by now, but now that they've surfaced again, I'm going to raise my questions again. First question is, where did these numbers come from? At the July 18th meeting, a resident seemed to indicate that she had supplied the information from the Bergen County clerk's records. But if you look at the top of ballot turnout numbers for November, they're all just flat wrong in that chart. The most glaring one, which is the one that caught my eye, was for 2016. The chart shows 39% turnout at the top of the ballot. It was actually 74%. It was a presidential election year. Turnout is never as low as 39% in a presidential election year. Turnout's usually pretty high. So when a lot of numbers in a chart are wrong, you start thinking about the entire analysis. So let's talk about the analysis. The chart compares budget vote turnout in April to candidate vote turnout in November and claims that turnout is higher in April. But that's not a real good apples-to-apples comparison, especially because all of the November candidate elections were uncontested. So we can do a little better on the analysis. And I don't, everybody accuses me of going too deep in the weeds and all this stuff, and I'm going to try not to. But so let's look at uncontested two-seat elections in April versus November. So that's 2 open seats, only 2 people running. In those elections, turnout is 45% higher in November. For uncontested 1-seat elections, that's just one person running for 1 seat, It's 8% higher in November. There were no contested two-seat elections in November, so we can't do that comparison. There was one contested, we can do a contested one-seat comparison, 2012 versus 2018. Turnout was triple in November, triple. We can look at a couple other things. The all-day kindergarten vote in November 2016 had 57% turnout. That's almost double the highest April budget turnout. Last month's turnout for the April school budget vote was 14 or 15%, depending on what you use for voter registration. That's well below the average for 2007 to 2013, and it cost $50,000. In my view, if this council made a decision about a $110 million budget on the basis of the numbers in the chart that is still apparently floating around, and those numbers are either flat wrong or they don't capture the nuance of voter participation, then I really think the council should revisit its decision on the basis of better numbers. Another question I have is just the number of registered voters and why it fluctuates so much year to year, and why the village clerk shows 1,300 more registered voters than the county clerk shows. These things all deserve further study. It's complicated, and yet then Mayor Susan Knudsen and Deputy Mayor Michael Seaton voted against studying these numbers when it was proposed at the League of Women Voters. And I guess I just wonder why information is a bad thing. So there are a lot of things about all this that puzzle me, like why residents are supplying voter turnout numbers to the village manager, and why no one else looked at this chart and said, you know, what's wrong with the top of ballot turnout numbers in November, and why my email about all of this was ignored. And again, why a decision about a very large budget was made on the basis of bad numbers. It's disappointing for Ridgewood, and I think we can and should do better. Thank you.
If I could just make a comment, Janice. So I had Donna Jackson look at the information for the past 10 years. And to your point, for April votes, except for 1 year, November has always been higher, significantly higher than voter turnout. And that concerns me as well, that we're spending all this money for just a very select number of people who vote. And, you know, we should have the vote, my personal feeling is in November, based on the fact that more people vote. And you want representation, equal, you know, you want wide representation. Right. And why we do this, I'm still baffled. So, thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I wish that I could say that I was surprised that the cost for the lighting at Maple Field is going to be more than what you were told last week, but I am not surprised. What shocks me, however, is that nobody except the council tonight thought to ask the sports groups for some money. Quite frankly, I think you should ask them for the entire $50,000. That infrastructure would not be put at the field unless the lights were necessary or the lights were wanted. So why not start and ask them for the full 50 rather than to say, let's pay your share of it? Because I don't know what their share of it would be. Would their share be a third of it? Would it be half of it? I say a third because funding is coming from three sources, from the village, from the sports groups, and from the county of Bergen. So what's their share? So share the whole thing, 50%, a third of it? I would ask them for the whole thing and start there as a negotiation point, and then work your way down or say, unless you pay for it, it's not happening. So again, it doesn't surprise me that it's going to cost more than you were originally told, but I do think that somebody should be asked for the money, and the taxpayers shouldn't have to pony up that money. Also on the subject of lighting, there was testimony by the Director of Parks and Recreation in terms of justification for the permanent lighting about how noisy, how smelly, and how dangerous these portable lights are. Everybody agreed that they're terrible. What I'd like to know is, why are we still using them? Is it more important to play sports than it is to make sure that our children are not exposed to diesel fumes and unnecessary noise? If these things are as dangerous as the Director of Parks and Recreation said they were, why don't we stop using them? When you drive into the parking lot here, you see on the field over to the north of the driveway, there are 3 of them set up. If they're giving off diesel fumes that could be harmful and cancer-causing, if the noise may create hearing problems for children, let's stop using them. Perhaps we should have the health director do an evaluation to make sure it is safe to use them. The director of Parks and Recreation has said we got to get rid of them because they're so bad, but yet they're still all over the place. I'm confused, and I wonder if you could clarify this after my comments. I thought when we purchased the Elks Club that there was money set aside in the capital bond ordinance for the renovation of the building. I'm hearing tonight that there is no money and there has to be another capital bond ordinance. So if you could clarify whether there is enough money to renovate the building or where you have to go out for another capital bond ordinance, would be interested to know that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I'd just like to reiterate for the 10 millionth time that if we cannot vote on the Board of Education proposed budgets in April, then we cannot vote on it. So regardless of how low the turnout is, 0% of people can vote on it if it's in November. So I think I stand by supporting the three of you who voted for allowing us our legal right to vote on the proposed budget. Thank you.
I believe that's not correct. Matt, they do have a right to vote on the Board of Ed budget if it is above 2% in November. So if it's moved, you have the right to vote if it goes above 2%. So that's not correct.
I think that's the way the statute applies, that if the budget is above a 2% increase, you have a right
so the residents do have the right to vote. Okay, so that's an incorrect statement. Thank you.
Any other comments? I will close public comments. I just want to address some of the information that was regarding the voter turnout numbers. I do recall during the voting for the change of the elections back to April, I know I certainly didn't cite any voter turnout numbers as the reason why. It was about restoring the vote back to the residents. That was the reason why. I do agree that if there's some ambiguity in the numbers out there, we should take a look at what the real numbers are, whether they're being supplied by the county or residents or whatnot. I do support looking at the real numbers. I would eliminate kind of like the outliers. I wouldn't really look at this April's election turnout because of the circumstances. The schedule is already set. It was in the middle of the break. There was no way to change the break or the election date. And I also wouldn't look at 2016 presidential election necessarily as a base case. So I think the real numbers are somewhere in between. I think it's worth taking a look as to what they are. But again, the decision from the council was not based on the numbers for the turnout. It was really all about restoring the vote. And I think I stated that pretty clearly in my rationale before I voted. There was a question about Elks funding. When we looked at the different proposals for the Elks, we looked at the purchase price of the property, and then there would be some sort of future number of what it could potentially would cost. There was no bonding for that additional number. We didn't know what the number was, but the understanding was that we're keeping in mind what the number would be in the future. We just didn't bond for it at the time. And that is all. With that, I'll take a resolution to go into closed session.
Could I just say one thing, too?
Sure.
We get our voter registration numbers actually from the superintendent of elections. They give us a whole data sheet prior to every election, which gives us a number of registered voters per district, as well as total overall. So those are the numbers we use, because that's what they provide us prior to every election.
All right. Take a resolution to go into closed session.
Be resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on May 22nd, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached, and that said closed session be held in the caucus room of the Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey, and be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to legal matters to include dispatch services, public forum space, water litigation, Ridgewood Water PFAS litigation, and Elks Club purchase. Personnel matters to include boards and committees. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 et sec. And be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.